Hi everyone, my name is John Gardner. I'm with Be Vital Yoga, www.bevital.life. And today I want to talk to you about a strength posture in yoga, in our asana practice. It's kind of a humble posture, and it's the squat. Now, we often do squats without really paying close attention to the nuances that are available in experiencing the squat. So I want to take us through that. I mean, it's easy enough to do squats the way we might do them in an interval training kind of environment, but here we want to dig a little bit deeper. And the first principle I want to share with before we even start is the idea of zero momentum, right? Our goal is to not pulse through weak spots in our practice. Our goal is to draw ourselves through the weak spots in our practice. So we don't want to use pulse in an area where we're strong to sort of coast through an area where we're weak. We want to try to feel the energetic requirement through the entire range of motion. So what that means is that we're just barely keeping ahead of gravity, right? Our activation is just enough to keep us in motion, and if we were to stop applying energy, the body would stop moving. So that's the idea of zero momentum. So when we're approaching our squat, we're going to take our feet relatively wide. You know, I often say wider than mat width apart, and for me that's a reasonable cue. Definitely wider than the hips, definitely wider than the shoulders, and we're going to point the feet pretty much in the direction that the thighs are gonna descend in, and so that's going to vary from person to person. Some people are going to have more limited hip opening capacity, so their knees are going to be closer. And as we come down, we're going to end up adjusting the feet anyway, so that's fine. So the idea here is that we're going to use a zero momentum philosophy. We're going to drop down slowly. We're going to drop into the posture, and we're going to notice where the body feels like it wants to go fast. The minute the body feels like it wants to go fast, stop. See, I'm starting to feel this little desire to skip through from here to about here. I want to just drop through that because it feels weak. So at this point I'm stopping, and I'm going to go through this area slowly, and I'm going to feel into what are the muscles that are actually the weaker muscles, the ones that seem to be wanting to skip class, so to speak. All right, and I'm going to go through those slowly until I get to the other side of that weak spot, and then continue to drop through the movement into the end of the posture. Okay, so now here, notice how now I'm going to sort of adjust my feet so that I can settle into my squat in a deep way. Now the same thing is going to be true on the way up, and unfortunately, it's actually harder on the way up because on the way down we had gravity working with us. Now we're working against gravity. So we're going to lift the body up slowly. And again, noticing where the weakness is going to occur. Now here I'm starting to feel weak, inner thighs and in my low back. Press my body up nice and slow through that zone. Back to the top. Now, so that's the idea of the zero momentum and going slowly through your areas of weakness. And we want to do that because it's the weak muscles where when we apply energy and focus, we actually get stronger faster. Our strong muscles are already strong. So applying energy to where we're weak, applying focus and intention to where we're weak, we're going to end up building strength faster. Now, there's a couple of other things I want to share with you about the squat. One is alignment. And now, again, we talk about alignment a lot in yoga. We talk about alignment a lot, and it has various purposes. And in this case, the purpose is to apply load to the large muscles in a way that optimizes the utility of your calories. So you want to get the most out of your workout. We also want to keep the body safe, and there's always something about keeping the body safe when you're talking about alignment. So. Okay, so what are we looking for? We're looking for a vertical spine, right? We're looking for the hips to be over the heels for as long as possible. What's going to happen is, okay, so we're going to take our hands to our heart if you like, or you can have them out to the side. And you start to drop into your squat. And for you, it may happen sooner than it's going to happen for me. I've been doing this for a while. But at some point, your hips are going to want to drift backwards. There's a natural requirement for the hips to drift back, right? So you end up coming down. Now my spine is not so vertical. I'm sort of tilting forward, right? And the same will be true on the way up, right? There'll be a limit in my ability to draw my hips forward until I get to a certain spot where I can release into more openness in my thighs. Okay? Now, what is that actually, what's actually going on there? So let's come back down and notice what the limit is, the rate limiting condition here is that I can't open my thighs. I can't open my knees wide enough. I'm congested or constrained in my inner thighs. So as I rise, I want to be pushing my hips forward into that resistance so that I can feel what it's like to be against it and to be strong at the same time. All right, so I'm using strength to push into some resistance here. And it's not easy work, right? You can tell I'm getting tired, right? I'm getting winded. The oxygen load here is not small. So as we come down, we're going to try to keep the spine vertical until we can't anymore. And that's when the hips, I'm running into resistance in my hips. I'm going to draw my hips back just enough, not very far. I'm going to try to stay in contact with that resistance. Now, as I press myself up, I'm also going to press myself forward, right? So that's engagement of the glutes. It's drawing the knees wide. It's engaging the back of the thighs. We're going to talk about that more in a second. Pressing my hips forward and pressing the body up, okay? So there's a lot of sensation available here in the pressing of the hips forward. Now, one of the other things that happens when we do squats is knee alignment, right? When we bring ourselves down into a squat, if the knees are more in, right, sort of like this, the load, and you can just try this without even actually squatting, without even being in motion, just drop into, and you'll feel the load in the quads and in the inner thighs. Now, there's another way to load the body. So when these muscles get tired, you can take the knees out, draw the load up the back of the thighs and into the glutes. And now the back of the thighs and the glutes are holding the body up. Okay, so it's the inner thighs and the quads and the inner groin. Knees out, it's the back of the thighs, the quads, and the adductors. Now, the adductors participate in both. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about this combination. Okay, the optimal way to load the body here is where you're actually relying on both the inner muscles and the outer muscles, and neither one gets tired first. So you have the ability to sort of regulate where the knees are, and in so doing, where the load is being borne. Are you bearing the load on the back of the thighs and the glutes, or are you bearing the load in the front of the thighs and the quads, the inner thighs? So you get to choose based on the movement of the knees. Now, where does that become a problem? Right? It becomes a problem when you no longer have the ability to draw the knees back to that spot where the hips drop back. Now we're really sort of relying on the inner muscles to do the work. So that's one of the reasons why we want to keep pressing in, because we want to get flexibility here. We want to be able to load the back of the legs and the glutes as we press up. Okay, last piece is that when we're talked about all this focus on the knees and where the energy is driving up the thighs into the hips here, the last piece is the adductors. So, right, and we're gonna the thing you're thinking in your head is, I'm going to straighten my legs. So it's quads, it's the knees. This is the joint that's doing a bunch of work. But there's another joint involved here. Well, there's two more. The ankles are also doing some work. We're not going to talk about those today. But the adductors, the drawing of the thighs together, right? So that you can actually apply energy to just squeezing your thighs together. And that takes load off of the quads and the back of the thighs and the glutes. The adductor muscles that are squeezing the thighs in can bear significant load in taking you up out of your squat. And of course, the same is true in bringing you down. It helps you keep your tail tucked a little bit. If you're focusing a little bit of attention on the adductors, eccentric contraction of the adductors. So even though you're opening them wider, you're still applying load to them, right? And when you're down here, squeezing the thighs together as you rise up. So angle of the knees, forward, inner thigh, backwards, outer thigh, glutes, and the compression of the thigh space towards the midline. And that'll get you pretty strong, pretty fast. And I always console myself when I'm doing squats is with the thought that most of the old farmers that I've ever talked to, and the stories that you hear about them, and they're 90 years old and they're still doing all their chores, their one go-to exercise is the squat. So, so what are we looking for? We're looking for the alignment of the feet with the thighs. We're looking for a vertical spine. We're looking to keep the hips pressed forward for as long as possible. We're looking to balance the load on the inner thighs and the outer thighs, the quads and the glutes. And we're going to add the adductors to the process. And that should take you well along your way into getting really strong. Oh, and zero momentum. Really strong in your squats. So thanks for watching. Thanks for joining me. If you have questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks.